The Council of Talvex had made what many considered their most controversial decision in centuries. When the nursery guardian fell ill during the migration season, they did the unthinkable. They hired a human. Darren Cade stepped into the crystalline chamber where the Talvexian cubs were kept, his boots echoing against the polished stone floor. Around him, 12 pairs of luminescent eyes watched from the shadows, belonging to creatures that would one day grow into apex predators standing 3 meters tall, with claws that could rend steel and jaws powerful enough to crush bone. Right now, though, they were cubs. Fluffy, uncertain, and utterly defenseless. The eldest council member, Threx, had briefed him with barely concealed skepticism. Humans are soft-skinned prey species, the massive Talvexian had rumbled. No claws, no natural armor. No venom. You understand that these cubs, while young, still possess instincts? They may challenge you. Darren had simply smiled. I understand. What the Talvexians didn't understand was that humans had their own instincts. Millions of years of evolution hadn't given them claws or fangs, but it had given them something far more dangerous: the ability to look at something small and vulnerable and feel an overwhelming need to protect it. The first day was tense. The cubs circled him cautiously, their striped fur bristling, testing this strange guardian who smelled wrong and moved differently. The smallest one, Vasker, approached first, his tiny growl meant to be intimidating but coming out more as a squeak. Darren crouched down slowly, making himself smaller, less threatening. He extended his hand, palm up, and waited. Vasker sniffed cautiously, then touched his nose to Darren's palm. The human skin was warm, softer than anything the cub had felt before, but there was something else there too: a steadiness, a patience. Within an hour, Vasker was curled in Darren's lap, purring. The others soon followed, drawn by curiosity and the strange comfort this alien radiated. Darren learned their personalities quickly. Vasker was brave but small, always trying to prove himself. Kauna was cautious, studying everything before acting. Threx Jr. was playful, constantly pouncing on his siblings. Each one unique, each one precious. The real test came on the third night. The nursery's proximity sensors blazed red as 3 Kralax hunters breached the outer perimeter. The Kralax were notorious poachers, and Talvexian cubs fetched astronomical prices on black markets across the galaxy. They were heavily armed, experienced, and utterly ruthless. They expected resistance from automated defenses, perhaps a few security drones. What they didn't expect was Darren Cade. The human stood in the nursery entrance, the 12 cubs huddled behind him. The Kralax leader, a scarred veteran with 4 cybernetic arms, laughed when he saw the lone figure blocking their path. A human? They sent a human to guard the cubs? His translator crackled with amusement. Step aside, Softskin, and we might let you live. Darren didn't move. His voice when he spoke was eerily calm. Leave, now, final warning. The Kralax raised their weapons. That was their mistake. Humans, the galaxy had learned too late, were persistence hunters. They weren't the fastest or the strongest, but they were relentless, adaptable. And when protecting something they cared about, they became something else entirely. Something that had once stared down creatures far larger and more dangerous than themselves with nothing but sharpened sticks and refused to back down. Darren moved. He wasn't faster than the Kralax. He was smarter. The first poacher's plasma rifle clattered to the floor as Darren's improvised weapon, a simple metal rod from the nursery equipment, struck his wrist with surgical precision. The second found himself on the ground, his breathing restricted by a chokehold executed with the kind of efficiency that came from centuries of refined martial technique. The leader fired. Darren had already moved, using the chamber's architecture, the shadows, every advantage the environment offered. The plasma bolt scorched the wall where he'd been standing a heartbeat before. Behind him, little Vasker growled, trying to sound fierce, trying to protect the human who had protected them. That sound ignited something primal in Darren. These weren't just cubs he was assigned to guard. They were his cubs now. The fight was brutal and brief. When the security forces finally arrived, summoned by the alarms, they found 3 unconscious Kralax bound with their own equipment and a human sitting calmly with 12 cubs crawling all over him, licking his face and purring. Darren had a split lip and a burn across his shoulder, but he was smiling. Council member Threx arrived personally, his enormous frame filling the doorway. He stared at the scene, his fierce eyes moving from the subdued poachers to the unharmed cubs to the soft-skinned human who sat there like it was the most natural thing in the galaxy. "Impossible," Threx whispered. "How did you have no claws, no armor?" "No, I have something better," Darren said, gently scratching Vaskir behind his ear ridges. The cub yawned, showing tiny fangs, and nuzzled closer. "I have a promise. Nothing touches them. Not while I'm breathing." Threx understood then what the Council had accidentally discovered. Humans weren't hired because they were strong. They were hired because when a human bonded with something, when they decided something was worth protecting, they became utterly immovable. An entire species that had looked at the hostile universe and said, "No, this is ours, and we will defend it." The news spread through the galactic community like wildfire. The human who fought off 3 armed Kralax poachers with nothing but a metal rod and sheer determination. Other species began requesting human guardians for their young. Not because humans were apex predators, they weren't, but because they had something no claw or fang could match, the absolute, unshakable conviction that the helpless deserved protection, and the willingness to stand between them and any threat no matter the cost. Darren Cade stayed with the cubs until they were grown, watching them transform from fluffy bundles into the magnificent predators they were meant to be. And on the day Vaskir, now massive, powerful, and deadly, stood taller than any of his generation, he lowered his great head and touched his nose to his old guardian's palm, just like he had that first day. Some bonds, the galaxy learned, transcend biology. And humanity had always excelled at forming bonds worth dying for. That more than any weapon or armor was what made them dangerous. And what made them invaluable.